Welcome to this new JavaScript series of DOM manipulation. In this series, we will look into DOM and learn everything about it through examples by creating simple beginner projects. The Document Object Model, DOM, is a programming interface for HTML and XML documents. It specifies the logical structure of documents as well as how they are accessed and modified. It is a method of representing a web page in an organized hierarchical manner, making it easier for programmers and users to navigate the text. Using the document objects commands or methods, we may simply access and edit HTML tags, IDs, classes, attributes, or elements. Another way to think about the DOM and how it works is as a tree of nodes, as you can see on the screen now. So here is simply a basic diagram of a DOM tree and all of its nodes. Everything in this diagram is a type of node, from the root element to the attributes to the text content, and even line breaks and comments, which we'll see later on, are nodes, and they all make up the DOM tree. Here, the DOM object is actually a property of the window object, which is the global top-level object representing a tab in the browser. And this window object has access to information such as toolbars, window height and width, prompts, and even alerts. Here in this example, HTML ID is a root element, which is a top-level element, and whatever comes after that will be a parent element or sibling, like this, where head and body are siblings but also parents to other elements like the title or div tag. Note that attributes or properties of any element are also part of the DOM hierarchy, but they are not explicitly mentioned as parent, child, or siblings like the other nodes do. The way they are accessed is through properties of the element node that they're contained in now often. There will be times you want to move throughout the DOM, so understanding this parent-child-sibling relationship is crucial to understanding how JavaScript works with HTML. DOM has 4 levels, beginning with level 0, which provides a low-level set of interfaces. Level 1 defines the core, which represents low-level structured documents of elements. Level 2 includes accessing and modifying the pages, as well as styling and traversing the pages. And Level 3 includes loading, saving, validating, and accessing the path. In this series, we will learn about how to change the content of HTML elements and change its style, how to react to DOM events, add and delete elements, and learn about document interface, and also some of the methods we use in JavaScript to manipulate HTML. Stay tuned and support this series so we can bring you more free and excellent courses in the future. In the next video, we will learn how to select an item or an object in JS and how to manipulate its attributes using an example. And if you are still watching until now, please share, subscribe, and help us in any way you can. Thank you.
Welcome back to this series. In this video we will look at selectors and how it works with JavaScript. To modify or change anything on the web page, we need to select elements from the page first, and selectors are the one which helps us to achieve our task. To select elements within an HTML page, there are primarily 5 selectors that are commonly used. We can select elements by ID, or by class name, or by using tags such as div or section. We can also use query selector and query selector all. Let's see these selectors one by one. Here, let's say ID equals element for this element. For this second element, class equals by class, and let's just keep this last div as it is. Now, back in app.js, let's say that for selecting an element with an ID, we are going to create a variable called select equals document.getElementById. Note that here document is just a class, which is having different attributes inside it, and we are just accessing it and using it to manipulate our HTML, and this whole is known as method. Now, inside the brackets, we'll give the ID, which is element, and console log out, and save. Now, if you check this here in the console, when we hover on this selected element, we can see that we can now control it, and inside this node we have selected this element with the help of ID. Now let's select an element with the help of a class. After document, just replace getElementById with getElementByClassName, and inside the brackets give class name. And console log out. Now, here on console, we can select this element in a similar way as we did with element ID, but instead of ID we are using class name over here. Similarly, we can use getElementByTagName to select elements by tag name, such as div, and console log out. And here, all the div tags get selected. Next in our selectors is Query Selector. Query Selector is an element interface method that allows us to search for and retrieve the document's first element. It discovers the element that matches any of the CSS selectors or groups of selectors specified. If no matching element is found, the function returns null. Function is only available in the document interface. A document interface is an interface that specifies the common methods and attributes for any type of HTML, XML, or other document. Let me comment this out first, so that you can see what's happening here much more clearly. Now here, let's say const select equals document.querySelector. And within these brackets, we can select a different element using hashtag ID or .className or a tag directly. For now, let's try selecting all div within our page and console log out. We've got the very first div tag and all of its properties. And as you can see in our HTML, just the first element of 3 div tags got selected. Now, before we move forward, let me create a list so we can understand this query selector method easily. Now here, inside brackets, let's say hashtag list and log out of the console. Check this out. Query Selector selects the very first element of a div with an ID called list. For Query Selector all, let's say const select el equals document.querySelectorAll. List. Console log out. Check this out. it selects all elements from list. Let's try it with div. For instance, the query selector all method will return a static node list object containing a collection of child elements that match a specified CSS selectors. Here collection of nodes is represented by the node list object. Index numbers can be used to reach the nodes. The index begins at 0, which is the first element in the list item, and ends with index number 3, just like collection of an array. And this all of the properties of these nodes. In our next lesson, we will learn how to manipulate HTML using these selectors and learn more about DOM. Stay tuned and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. In this lesson we will learn how to create elements, and modify, and remove them. So let's start things off by taking a look at how we can change the styling of an element. So if you are familiar with CSS and CSS properties, we have a way we can access these properties in JavaScript. So the first thing we'll do is let's remove this all elements in index.html. Let's take another example. Let's say a heading and list of items. Back in app.js, here we're going to look at styling using HTML styles and learn how to add and remove elements from the page. So first thing we'll do is just try to select this heading, which is just the title of the container, and so we're going to put that in a variable, and we'll call this variable title and then document.querySelector method, and we'll grab the ID of this element which is heading, and then let's just log this in the console so we know this variable is working. And as you can see now, we've selected this element and stored inside the variable of title. So what we can do now is actually manipulate the starting of this element and change it around using CSS properties. So to access CSS properties in JavaScript, we'll just first grab the variable we want to apply the styling to, which in this case is the title or the main heading, and then we simply type in the style property. And then after this style property you just use any CSS property you want to apply to this element. So what we'll do is just change the color of the text, and we'll set this to, let's say, red. And as you can see in the browser, now we've changed the color of the main heading from black to red using the style property. And if we change this color to background color and save, you can see that now instead of text color, background color is turned into red. In similar way we can change font size using font size instead of background color. Let's replace red with 4rem here. And check this out. Our font style changed to 4rem. Let's set this to 2rem for now. For styling or doing any modification, you don't need to remember all this properties names at all. You can just go to W3 School or Mozilla. Let me show you what I mean. Inside W3 School JavaScript section, here you can see JS HTML DOM section. Over here you can find every single methods which we used so far. For example, here in DOM documents, we got this list of commands where you can say methods for creating element, deleting element, and appending child and many more. Similarly, if you select HTML style here, you can see this all of the properties which we can use to add CSS styles or modify existing styles using these properties. This type of styling is what you'd call inline styling, and there are other methods to style elements with JavaScript too, but this is probably the most direct method, and because it used this inline styling, it cannot be used on multiple element. Let me show you what I actually meant. Here in this code let's replace heading with class named list items, and instead of query selector, let's say query selector all and let's save. You can see this isn't actually working, because here we are trying to apply inline style to multiple list items. So to make this work, you can just put this line into a loop like this. And check this out, font style is applied to all items. Let's see how to add and delete and modify elements now. Let's comment this out first, and see our W3 school list, and try to find out how to create element, and add to our list. See this from here. We can use createElement and append method to make a new list item. Let's create a new variable, say ul equals document.querySelector. Inside brackets let's say class name list items, and now let's create new list item inside this tag, const li equals document.createElement, inside brackets, let's say li, and let's say ul.append li. And now if we console log out ul, and look into our console and browser, here you can see there is no new tag, but instead of li tag we got this string after basketball. This happened due to two mistakes we made over here. First we used li as string over here, and secondly we are selecting list items class in ul, and there's no class to ul, but in actual we got class inside li, so let's change this to ul tag. And now check this out, we got our new li element. Now here we can add new string too, inside this li tag. To do so, add li.append inside quotes and name it as football, and save it. Check out, football is now added to the list. Let's remove this football for a while, and let me show you several ways we can include text or modify text in our HTML. Let's check out in our list and find out what we can use. What we can see over here is inner HTML, text content, and inner text. Let's see how this works. Let's create a list items variable equals document.querySelector with class list items. Now console log out list items inner HTML. Let me duplicate this, and over here we change to text content and an end inner text and save it. Check this out in console. We are only able to see basketball, and for all three console we have same output. Let me show you the real difference between this three. To do that, over here in index.html, inside this list items, let's add a span tag and game inside it, save. Now, see this in our console, we are able to see what's the real difference between inner HTML, text content, and inner text. So within a text here, you can see we're simply getting the visible text contained within that node with text content. You see it's actually being displayed the same way it is in the HTML file, so it's got all those indents and it's jumping onto a new line, and within HTML, a similar sort of thing with the indents and jumping onto a new line, but it's also showing the tags, so showing us the span tags inside of so. That's pretty much the difference between the three. Another thing to consider is that using inner HTML within HTML can be dangerous, primarily for security reasons. You don't want user input to be displayed in the inner HTML because this allows the user to control the JavaScript and the HTML on your web page, which obviously is a problem. Now, let's try to add list item using inner text. Before that, comments this. And now let's say inner text equals cricket, and add inner text before li, and save. And check this out, we got cricket in our list, and this is another way, better way to add or say append inside list. Now let's look some modifying attributes and classes, and the first method we're going to take a look at is setAttribute method. So we'll grab our list items, and we'll say setAttribute, and what it does is set an attribute to our specified element, which in this case is our list items, and here inside brackets let's say class comma list items and save. Check out, our element is now got the attribute of class name list items, as we can see here. And if we change this attribute to ID and heading, we will get heading properties applied to our list item. There's a problem over here. Let's go to app CSS and over here. See, heading is not ID but a class, so let's change that with hashtag and save. Check this out. Now this heading properties are visible in our HTML. And let's add some weight to font. Font weight to bold. And here we got what we wanted. And to remove the properties from item, replace set attribute with remove attribute, and here we now got our default property back. Before we end this lesson, let me show you how to add and remove element with classes. There can be multiple ways to create or remove items, and it's totally fine whichever you use according to the situation. So let me show you another one. Over here, let's say li.classList, and inside this brackets, let's select list items and save. We got error. It's because we did not define what we want to do. So over here, we want to add cricket into our list items. So here we will say li.classList and add list items. And see, we got out item here. Now if you want to remove it, just replace add with remove and that's it. If you were watching till now, then please do not forget to share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. So far, we have seen how to create and modify our HTML page with JavaScript, but how do we really interact with pages? What I mean is, how we can make web page more interactive, like when we click something or perform certain tasks, some change happen inside it. For example, when we click a submit button, our form gets submitted, or on hovering the mouse over some element something occur, or similar with keyboard when we click certain key, some kind of event occur. Basically, events are actions that happen when the user or browser manipulates a page. They play an important role as they can cause elements of a web page to change dynamically. In this lesson, we will look at our most basic and commonly used event handler, and that is Add Event Listener. And we'll also create our first simple project with it. So without ado, let's get started. The Add Event Listener method in JavaScript allows the user to set functions to be run when a certain event occurs, such as when a user clicks a button. Now let's take a look at the syntax for it. Here, element is basically a target where you can say the element you want to get control over. Event inside the bracket is a string that specifies the name of the event, like click, or load, or mouse over, and more. And function, we already learned about it in our previous video, which is a piece of code which performs certain tasks. And in the end-use capture is an optional Boolean value that specifies whether the event should be executed in the capturing or bubbling phase. And don't worry about bubbling, we will cover it in some other video, and for this lesson we are not going to use it at all. And for list of events, you can use Google and can also visit W3 School, where you will find many of them. For learning purpose we will use only few of them, but if you want to try more of them, just go for it. Give it a try by yourself, as only practice will make you perfect. Let's create our first event listener. Let's const btn equals document.querySelector and add class box. Now here, for event listener, let's say set button as our target element. After that, add event listener, inside brackets, click comma, function, and within this listener, let's console log out, clicked. This is just to see if our event listener is working properly or not. Check this out, our button is working perfectly. So now let's create an array. Const color equals red, green, blue. Now inside this function, let's say document.body.style.backgroundColor equals color. And to select colors from array, just add index number, for instance, color at index 0, and save. Now when we click the box, our body color is changed to red. Similarly, let's say color at index 1. It's green color. And at index 2, we got blue. Here we are just accessing this colors which is saved in this array. Here we are only able to access one color at a time, which kind of static and boring. Let's try to make it more fun. Let's remove this line for now as we don't need it. And let's try to select this colors randomly from this list. And to do that we will use math.random. Let me quickly explain what math.random does. Let's comment this out for now and make a function called random number. Here in random number, const equals math.random multiply by 1, for instance. And when we save this, we got this random value, and this value lies between 0 and 1. Similarly, if changed to 2, now check out, we get value 1 point something. But in the end we cannot select decimal values, right? I mean, there can be only true or false value. So to resolve this we just have to convert this decimal to floor. And to do so just add math.floor like this, and that's it. Now let's make some changes to our function, so that we can use it for changing our color. Let's remove this function call from here. And let's directly return this math.floor. Over here replace 2 with color.length, which will select color from our array. And finally over here let's call our function and save. Check this out. Now we are able to change this background color randomly by accessing colors from our array. Now I want you to create a random background or links button color changer. I am sure you can make one. Hope you liked this lesson. Please do share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.